Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Form. Now on Saturday at Woodbine, we talked about the whimsical in the stakes preview, but now we're going to focus on the male sprinters on Sunday, May 14th. Race number 7 is the Grade 3 Jacques Cartier. It's also at 6 furlongs, but it's for 4-year-olds and upward. And as I mentioned, looking at the boys here, and we'll look at this field here of 8 runners total. Some interesting horses such as Zach, who has a very impressive resume, was a 2-time winner in 2022 as well as in 2021. Old Chestnut, who's a hard-knocking type, finally was able to break a losing streak in his most recent effort. You can see a couple horses in here from Cassie as well. And then on the outside, an interesting horse previously in California, Anarchist, now in the barn of Josie Carroll. Has raced very well so far in 2023, but just has been second best in each of his appearances. So it's an interesting rendition of the Jacques Cartier. We'll start with the number 1 in here, Ready for a Fight. This one's going to race first off the claim for the new connections who picked him up for $50,000 last time out. It was his first start in just over 3 months, and he was a winner. He got a really nice trip, stalking the pace, was able to draw clear there. The big question for him will be the step up in class. He's going to be facing some more seasoned rivals who have had their fair share of chances at this graded stakes level, and he has not. He did try a stakes race, though, to start off 2023 on New Year's Day at Turfway Park, but he only finished 5th in that event, and I think this field could be a bit tougher than what he saw a couple starts back. The number 2, Arzak, this one out of the Mike Trombetta barn. He's been very impressive throughout his career, a 5-time winner. He's taken, last year's rendition of this race. Then he was second next out in that Grade 2 event. They took him to Saratoga. He's traveled, but we're going to take a look at his last appearance. Now, a couple horses are going to exit the Kennedy Road, this Grade 2 event, and he took all the money in here. He was even money. You can see Silent Poet and him are locked up here, heading kind of into the stretch now, and he's just going to lose it from here. He's going to backpedal. Other horses are going to start hitting their best strides late. So Arzak's the 11, the 5 is Candy Overload, the 9 is Ice Chocolate. And these horses, at this point, Silent Poet might look like he's going to get away, and Arzak's backing up. The other 2 close very nicely here in the stretch. They certainly had the pace set up to be able to do so. And Candy Overload's going to get the job done. Ice Chocolate ends up finishing second. So Arzak, not very good in the Kennedy Road. You always hate to see horses that take so much respect, especially like a horse like him in his last 2. He's been favored, but it hasn't been able to place in the top 3. But he has a ton of back class. I think the time off probably did him well. Now just making his first start of his 5-year-old season. He's got some great workouts. And the other thing to note, you kind of look at some of his performances, a lot of turf races, but he does have 4 tries locally on the surface up at Woodbine. He's a 3-time winner, and his only disappointing performance was that last out. Kazushi Kimura has been aboard him for his last 2 wins and that most recent effort, and he's scheduled to ride this Sunday. Now, Red River Rebel also raced in that race. He's the number 3 here in this field. He finished 5th. He was able to make up a fair bit of ground, beaten by 2.5. It was a bit of a step up from him, though. He has tried stakes competition in the past, and he had done well in some small stakes races on the dirt at Fort Erie and the Lake Erie, was able to win another event a couple starts later back at Woodbine. But some of his tries at the stakes level haven't been his best. But I thought in the Kennedy Road, with everything that was said and done, he did get some pace to run at. He ran fairly well. Prior to that, he was a winner by almost 4 lengths while facing softer competition. Now he's going to make his first start for his new connections. He has a string of workouts. Most recently has a pretty nice workout on their surface there back on May 5th. So I think he's going to need to improve, and I also think he will probably need a start. That's the thing with the season. The meet just kicked off less than a month ago. So some of these horses, we haven't seen them so far in 2023. Number 4, Old Chestnut, a 6-year-old son of Spitestown who was able to snap a losing streak last time out. We'll take a look at that race back on April 30th, so just about 2 weeks ago. Obviously, the competition was softer, but this was a horse that they put him in spots throughout his career down at Gulfstream, at Woodbine. He just wasn't able to get the job done, and to see him here be able to pass Orispo and kind of really kick on here ends up being almost a 5.5 length winner. He was favored in this spot, but not only does he win nicely, I think that efforts like this are certainly confidence boosting for racehorses when they're able to snap a streak like that. He did get a 95 Beyer speed figure, which is a career best. So that was just his first start off the claim for Marty Drexler. He had this horse in the barn for some time. He claimed this horse back in October, sat on him, and maybe they just had a couple kinks to work out, but it seems like he is better than ever. And I was visually impressed with that effort. Now, he is going to have to step up, go down the page. He has raced fairly well in some stakes races in the past. Was 5th in the Silks Run in his most recent try. And that was all the way back in 2022 of March. He kind of split that field, but was only beaten by 2 lengths in the end. The number 5, Ironstone, is going to make his 4-year-old debut, and he was a very impressive 3-year-old. Now, I know you go back to last year and you're saying, why do you say he's impressive? He was only 1 for 7, but he really tried in every single effort that he made. His only off the board finish was in the Queen's Plate, which going into that race, looking how they stretched him out from 6 furlongs to 7 furlongs to a mile and a 16th, mile and a quarter, I certainly thought he would have distance limitations, but you look how good Moira was. She was a 7-length winner. I think that kind of steps up his effort. And then because he had that natural speed, when he went to Fort Erie to race in the Prince of Wales, was able to almost carry himself to the wire. He ended up being second best. But since then, he did have a win in the Grade 3 Ontario Derby at a mile and an eighth. And his last start of the year was a 3rd place finish at a mile and a quarter. So he's cutting back significantly in distance. Now, he has raced very well at these sprint distances. And I think for him, this might even just be a starting point for his 4-year-old campaign to see what sort of horse he's going to be this year. Sometimes the move from 3 to 4 is tough on a horse and they change, but he's had some really good performances sprinting up at Woodbine in the past. Going to get a new rider, though, for the first time, Rafael Hernandez. The number 6, Ice Chocolat. This one is one of several trained by Mark Casse. I was disappointed in those last 2 efforts. Now, didn't take a ton of respect in that most recent start at Keeneland, going 5.5 furlongs on their turf course. Only beat several in there, but Irad Ortiz Jr. was allured to ride that one, so that's maybe a vote of confidence. And you go down the page and just look at his efforts. He's really done his best running up at Woodbine. Now, he's only had 1 start there. You can see on the Tapeta or the synthetic up there, but that was when he finished second. We looked at that replay, got that pace set up, was able to close really nicely to miss by 3/4 of a length. Even his turf efforts are there. To me, just having that 1 start, it was a pretty solid one to say the least. So I think he's got a big shot in this race. And in terms of where he could be positioned early on, typically he's pretty close to the pace, and that might be kind of advantageous for him, especially just going 6 furlongs. The number 7, Candy Overload, another for Mark Casse, who was 3rd in his most recent appearance. But unlike others in here, this is a horse that also was able to race this winter. Mark takes his horses all over the country, and both, I should say over the continent, really, both in Canada and the United States. And this one was at Turfway Park. Raced several starts there, had those 2 efforts, a win in the Forego and more recently a 3rd in the Big Daddy. They were at 6.5 and 6 furlongs respectively. Big numbers from this horse in those efforts, but the big thing, unlike his stablemate to his inside, I think he's going to be further back early on, so the hotter the pace, the better for him. He's a true closer through and through. He's had some good efforts even at longer distances. So for Candy Overload to have kind of a big shot in the end, the pace will have to be hot. And then to round out the field, the number 8, Anarchist. This is probably the most intriguing horse in the field because this is one that we haven't seen up at Woodbine and only has 1 turf race. Everything else is on the dirt. So you're trying to figure out if the turf race suggests this one can handle the synthetic surface up at Woodbine. And just looking at these efforts, we're going to take a look at that lone turf effort. I was pretty impressed with this horse. Now, I know it was only a field of 7 in this Grade 3 event, but you can see the 7 in here. He doesn't take a lot of respect. 11-1. He's going to try to make up some ground here, and Motorius ends up being the winner in here and just kind of had the jump on everyone else in terms of the stretch run here. But Anarchist is game throughout. He's going to be able to pass a really impressive horse by the name of Brickyard Ride, who was able to beat him in his following outing. Brickyard Ride was able to win the Kona Gold going back to the main track, but the horses that he faced in his last 2 are really decent horses in California. And I would say they're better than decent. So I'm curious to see how he'll handle this field on Sunday. I will say it's not great to see a horse that has 4 runner-up finishes from 4 starts this year, but maybe the change of scenery will help his chances. And all of his efforts have been extremely impressive. You look at those Beyers, the last 3 have been 90 plus with that effort that we showed, a 97 Beyer speed figure. Luis Contreras set to ride. And making that first start for Josie Carroll, Josie does tremendous work with these new acquisitions. So I find this horse to be extremely intriguing on Sunday in the Jacques Cartier. But looking at this field of 8, top to bottom, ultimately I did land on the number 2, Arzak, which I will admit I did not love his performance in his last 2 races. I'm hoping that the time off suited him well. He seemed to be training very well. You look at those bullet drills, going to ship back up to Woodbine. He's had a lot of success in terms of his performances up at Woodbine, regardless of surface. So I'm going to go with Arzak in here. The 7, Candy Overload. I think this horse is going to be closing very quickly in the end and should be able to get a pair, or at least a piece, or a minor share in this field. The number 8, Anarchist. I thought about using him a little higher on the ticket. I mean, he's a really nice horse in here, but I just want to see how he does in his first start. It is a new surface, but his numbers suggest he certainly fits this group. And then to round it out, the number 6, Ice Chocolate. We just saw a really nice performance from him when we looked at that Kennedy Road replay with second in there. Does have 2 starts since then, so I think from a fitness perspective, this is a horse that, should race pretty well in this race on Sunday. But for me, I'm going to go with the number 2, Arzak, as my top selection. Good luck.